This is a knife.
That's not a knife, that's a spoon.
Hello and welcome to the installation instructions video for the Specialized Turbo Creo SL and Turbo Vado SL. We are recording this video because many of you did not play with Lego cubes when you were little, so my previous installation video, which was a general video for CenterLock, has deemed to be inadequate. So now, when you can see your bike, you will know exactly what you need to do and how. Now obviously this is a Vado SL. You can, through the power of your imagination, imagine a Creo SL, and the procedure is going to be perfectly identical. As always, it would be a good idea to start with the bike flipped upside down on a flat level surface, preferably covered by like a Persian rug of sorts, or maybe a dead animal of some kind. And that's it. And now we're gonna do the installation now. Yes. It would be a good idea to shift the bicycle into the highest gear, meaning the smallest cog on the rear cassette. Purple glove! As this will ensure easier wheel removal and reinstallation. Also, if you have a clutch derailleur on your bike, it would be a good idea to turn off the clutch. Now you will take a number 6 Allen key and undo the axle. Remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Just spin this until it stops gaining distance and then pull out. That's what she said. Now you will grab the rim by the top, you will push the derailleur cage forward, extend the P-knuckle backwards and just lift the wheel out of the bike. Before we move on to the hub part of the installation, there's an intermediate step that you will need to perform. In this area here, it's underneath the brake caliper on the non-drive side of the frame, is your speed sensor. And here at the rear is the speed sensor tip, which we are going to relocate slightly further towards the axle hole. So we need to move this sensor tip slightly further towards the rear. Now you may notice on your bike, the same as on this bike, that if you try to move the cable, it's already moving. So this clamp here actually holds fuck all. But in any case, if that's not the case, you will take a 2.5mm Allen key and you will simply insert it into this little screw head and just undo it completely. So once that's out, you will take it out completely and you will see that here you have a little clamp that is supposed to hold the thicker part of the sensor, okay? But it does not, because it will bottom out sooner on this flat surface where the bolt hole is than it will actually catch this larger part of the sensor, okay? So this is how it's supposed to be. In the next step, you might get a pair of needle nose pliers, which will make your job easier. And you need to pull some cable. Just grab it very gently here, okay, where it exits the frame, and try to push the sensor all the way into this little hole at the forged part of the frame. And now, obviously, there is almost no need to return the little clamp here because it can't hold to the cable because the cable is too thin of a diameter. The fact that you have a hard-tailed bicycle means that this cable will never be pulled forward and backward due to suspension movement or anything. So this should pretty much stay in place all on its own. You can just try to maybe push the tip of the sensor back and see how the cable goes into slight compression, but you have pulled enough of the cable so that it always returns into this position. So it will always stay like this even if you don't secure it in any way. But maybe a good solution would be to take a small zip tie and then insert it through the rear here, just beneath the sensor, through a little hole. And once you have slid it in just enough, you will feel it kind of jam against the sensor, and then you can literally just cut this piece of the zip tie here, and that will hold the sensor firmly in place. We are doing all of this because the magnet used in the Planet 3 for the Creo and the Vado SL is just slightly weaker than the original magnet. So we have to bring the sensor just 3 to 5 millimeters, usually does the job, closer to the rear where the CenterLock PLANET3 will actually be. If upon the installation of the PLANET3 you notice that there is a problem with the speed sensor or that it is not picking up the magnet, I will refer you to the diagnostics video for the PLANET3 CenterLock version for the Creo and the Vado SL, which will also be on the channel. Since the lock ring that holds the CenterLock rotor is tightened with 40 Newton meters of torque, it would be a good idea to hold the wheel firmly on the floor, rest it against your knees, and then possibly hold it up here while you insert the tool. Hold the tool here, especially if it doesn't have a guided pin so it doesn't rock back and forth, and then just untighten. You can then remove your socket wrench and just untighten this. Be careful, there's a magnet obviously on the external side, so once you untighten it, it will get stuck against the rotor because fucking magnets. And then just remove it. Store this for later use when you have to convert the bike back to stock. At this moment we're going to talk about hub endcap compatibility. If you have bought a Specialized Creo SL model that is an Expert or an S-Works, it will feature a straight hub endcap profile like this. This needs no replacement and the PLANET3 is directly compatible with it. However, if you have purchased an SL Comp, Comp Carbon or any other like lower tier model, it will be equipped with a hub endcap that has this concave profile and you will need to replace it with the one that I send. Now, the way to replace the hub endcap is just by pulling it off with your fingers, because this will be held by a single O-ring over here. So you will just pull it off and then pop on the replacement, which will also have an O-ring pre-installed and pre-greased, and just press it in. If the hub endcap is not easily removed with your fingers, you will just wrap a piece of old inner tube or some leather, grab it with some pliers and then pop it off. Now, because the bike industry likes to use grease wherever grease is not strictly necessary, if your end cap, once you pull the wheel out of the bike, is filled with grease over here and the dropout is also filled with grease, I would like you to take a piece of the very precious resource during the Corona time, which is a wank toilet paper, and then just take just 2 pieces maybe, okay? And then get some brake cleaner, spray it on the toilet paper and not on the hub, and then clean up the end cap so that it's all dry. For the next step, you will take your PLANET3, which will come pre-installed onto the replacement Shimano lock ring that I will send to you, which we need to separate now. There's a gap right here between the sun gear and the lock ring, into which you will insert a knife. That's not a knife, that's a spoon. All right, you win. I've seen you play knifey spoony before. So just take a knife, insert it right here, and just go all around with a slight left and right motion, and this should pop right off. Next step is to take the replacement lock ring and just tighten it in place of the old one. This would be a very good time to take a torque wrench capable of 40 Newton meters and just tighten until you hear a click. When you disassembled your sun gear from the lock ring, you will have noticed that it consists of 2 parts. There's the sun gear base, which has 2 sides. The upper one, that should always be facing you, will be perfectly flat and rather shiny, while the lower one will have this little indentation here, which incorporates this raised bevel surface of the lock ring, and it will not be as smooth, okay? The teeth themselves have the teeth, and they have a profile that corresponds to the lock ring, which is basically a cassette tool, but it's made to hold via press fit. You can insert the sun gear splines through the sun gear base so that the flat surface and the teeth are on top. Then you will just simply place this on top of this, rotate slightly until you feel the teeth engage, and then help yourself with the cassette tool, which you will just pop on here and press with the palm of your hand until you feel it bottom out. There should be just slight indentation here and you should feel some pressure. Now the sun gear press fit holds quite firmly and you can basically almost lift the whole wheel with it. Okay? And just verify that it's still in place. Since the sun gear is a very light part, this press fit is more than capable of holding it in place firmly forever. But it should not hold so firmly that you would not be able to remove the sun gear completely if you really tried. You can just pry this with your fingers all around the circumference and you should be able to take this off, okay? If it's holding slightly more firmly than that, again, you can take your knife, just pop it in between and then go around and do this motion, which is just to lift all around, okay? But for now, we need this press fit down. Next, you will take your little planet and just place it on top of the sun gear. And please make sure that it's engaged with the teeth of the sun gear. Also, the magnet side has to be facing up, or U, because there's a little chamfer here on top. And if you orient the planet like this, I will just come to your house and murder you, okay? So, it has to be like this. Make sure that it's going around, and then we move on to the next step. Next step is literally the most problematic of all, so please listen carefully. This is the ring gear. It is the outside cover of the Planet 3. It also has these internal splines, okay? But it actually consists of two parts. We have the large flat part and we have the clips which will hold via press fit here. These two are usually concentrically glued on top of a special tool by me so that this joint is actually centered, okay? Otherwise it would wobble around. Why do I mention this? Because there are several people who ignore my very kind and gentle requests when placing the ring gear on top of the end cap, and they decide to push on the outside here. When you try to do this, this joint between the clips and the ring gear is in tension, okay? You're actually trying to separate it. While if you just press on the surface of the clips, nothing will happen, because then this joint is in compression, okay? So please, people, just use your thumbs and you can overlap both the hub end cap and the ring gear clips and just push. You need to push it good, push it real good, okay? And nothing can happen. That's just, I don't know how it's so problematic, but it is. So please just do it like this. Literally, what I do for every one of these, before it goes out, I place it on top of a hub that I have at home, like this. I take a fucking rubber mallet, and I do this. And nothing will happen, because this is in compression. Okay, so please just don't fucking push on the outside. Okay, I'm sorry, Daddy didn't mean to scream, okay? Daddy loves you. So once you have the ring gear started on the hub end cap, you will also, again, do all of the pushing on the clips here, the raised bevel surface, okay? And we need to uniformly press it down until you engage with the teeth of the ring gear with the teeth of the planet. But please just move this down a couple of millimeters and then stop. And we will move to, you will either move the wheel to a vertical position or you will lean yourself down in order to be able to gauge this depth. We will do this in the next step. Now for the tricky part. The proper installation depth of the ring gear will determine your overall longevity of the Planet 3. So this is very important not to get wrong. The proper installation depth is reached when this lower edge of the ring gear will be aligned with the lower edge of the sun gear. That ensures that the gap between the inner surfaces of the sun gear and the ring gear will be at 0.2 millimeters, which is what I built into the device. So all of the pushing still needs to happen centrally on the raised bevel surface right here. So I will just start pushing down until I reach almost the proper installation depth. And then what I want you to do is not look at the device centrally here, because then you will have just a black background which obstructs your view, but just look on either side. I will be looking on this side. So when I lean down like this, I will be pushing right here with my forefinger. You can see that now the edges are aligned, but on the other side, the ring gear is still in the air, but I will not push the other side. I will just rotate the end cap in small increments and keep pushing centrally right here. Now I can rotate the end cap because the whole assembly and the wheel is not actually resting on the table. It's resting on, let's call it a dog bowl, and the end cap on the drive side is not resting on the table. So I can rotate, okay? If you just rest this on a table, this will obviously not work because the end cap is a part that's usually stationary in the bike when the axle is tightened and the whole wheel rotates around it, okay? And now that we have this cleared up, you can just look at it from the side, and the ring gear should not wobble up and down as you rotate. You can of course do all of this with the wheel in a vertical position on the floor. It's just important to lower your gaze so that you are in line with the lower surface of the sun gear. And this is the level of sound that you can expect when the Planet is making its rounds. Okay? If you have pushed this too deep, it will sound like this. That's the sound of the ring gear scraping on the sun gear. If you have done this, you will need to hold the hub end cap firmly in place with your thumb, then grab the ring gear with your fingers. But again, do not put your finger all the way in here so that you grab both the sun gear and the ring gear. And you will just try to pry the ring gear up in the air by a couple of tenths of a millimeter so that you can reinstall to proper installation depth. Okay, once it's up in the air, then you can just redo it. If you can hear this sound, the little clicking sound that was just happening, that means that I have also caught the sun gear and moved it up in the air. This means you will have to remove the whole ring gear and then just press the sun gear in place again, the teeth, okay? There should be no, you can hear this. This means the Planet is catching the part of the spline that's usually the cassette tool. The final step, which you almost can't fuck up, is to put the wheel back into the bike. So extend the derailleur cage again, and then aim the smallest cog of the cassette into the chain on the lower side, aim the disc into the calipers, and then just drop it in, okay? And then you will take your axle, push it in, and then if it's not all the way in, you will align the other side and until it engages. And then with a torque wrench set to 15 Newton meters, you will tighten this until point of contact and then in a one fell swoop until it clicks. And again, remember from the start we turned off the clutch on the derailleur, so click that back into the position and verify that the cage can no longer easily be moved forward. It might be a good idea to verify at the end that you have retained proper installation depth of the ring gear, because you can see here that I left just a very, very tiny edge of the sun gear visible. And if I just turn the pedals, this is the normal level of sound that the Planet 3 will have in, like, let's call it living room conditions. If, on the other hand, you push the ring gear too deep, you can hear this plastic on plastic scrape, and that's not good. So what you would do is just either pull the wheel back and reinstall, or just grab the ring gear and just pull it back just slightly so that you can see the sun gear underneath, but just a hairline. And then we're back in business. And that's it. Enjoy your Planet 3. Daddy loves you. Give me your money. Bye.